I was wrestling and I broke my neck. I had to get a halo in my head. The screws. Everybody knows NBA Youngboy as the rapper with billions of streams, endless arrests, and a presidential pardon. Almost nobody knows this story actually starts at 4 years old, with a broken neck, a shattered family, and a childhood that never stood a chance. Those 3 scars on his forehead, most people assume he caught them in a fight. He didn't. They came from a wrestling accident so bad that doctors had to screw a metal cage into his skull just to keep his head still while his broken neck healed. He was barely 4 years old. His name is Kentrell Deshaun Gaulden. The world knows him as NBA Youngboy. Born October 20th, 1999 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Years later, sitting in front of a camera, he described that accident calm and unbothered, like he was talking about the weather. But in the same breath, he went even further back, to the one memory that felt like light. His mother, Shirhonda Gaulden, made music, and he used to sit right next to her in the studio at 4 years old. That's the last soft memory before everything started collapsing. His mother wasn't able to raise him day to day. His father, Jeffrey Stadium, got sentenced to 55 years in prison for armed robbery when Kentrell was around 8. 55 years to an 8-year-old isn't a bid, it's forever. So he got passed to the one person who stayed down for him, his grandmother, Alice Gaulden. He later said it plainly, "My grandmother was my everything. That was my protection, my comfort. That was his whole world," holding the roughest parts of Baton Rouge on the other side of the door. In 2010, she passed from heart failure. And that's where this stops being a sad story and becomes a tragic one. Because a sad childhood hurts, but a tragic one is one where the hurt has nowhere to land. With his father locked up and no one able to fully take him in, Youngboy got placed in a group home. And that group home wasn't a rescue. It was a second wound. He's talked about getting jumped by other boys in there for no reason he could even explain, and how that experience cracked open the sheltered world his grandmother had built around him. In his own words, he found out how to become the person you don't want to do that with. Read that slowly. A grieving kid deciding the only way to survive is to turn into someone dangerous. That's not a personality. That's armor welded on fast over a wound that never got to heal. From there, the slide was fast. The same slide a whole generation of kids from those blocks knows too well. He dropped out of high school in 9th grade. No grandmother, no father, no plan. He got into robbery, stealing cars to pawn for money, and that road led exactly where it always leads, a cage. He landed in juvenile detention on a robbery charge, and it was there, locked down as a teenager, that he started seriously writing bars. The same system that was supposed to fix him became the place where he found his voice. He'd actually written his first song back in 4th grade, inspired by watching his mother record. The seed was always there. It just took a locked door to make him water it. That's the part people skip when all they see is the tattoos, the mugshots, and the beef. Every song, every arrest, every headline, every dollar that came after, it all grew out of this. Abandonment. Loss. Institutions instead of arms. A kid who broke his neck, then broke his family, then broke his own idea of who he was even allowed to become, all before he was old enough to drive. He started dropping music in 2015 as a teenager, and Baton Rouge started moving fast. His early tapes, including 38 Baby in 2016, built a regional buzz that spread past Louisiana and turned into a deal with Atlantic Records. Then the hits kept stacking. Outside Today, Bandit with Juice WRLD, chart-topping projects like AI Youngboy 2 in 2019 and Top in 2020, until he was sitting on billions of streams and over 100 RIAA-certified titles with barely any mainstream radio push. And he wanted it. He said so directly, comparing his hunger in the booth to Kobe on the hardwood. He wasn't chasing vague dreams. He wanted a #1 album, songs on radio that would outlive him. And his idea of success was never about looking rich. It was about being wealthy. Rich mean you balling, wealthy mean your kids balling. He got the numbers. What he never got was one clean stretch of freedom to actually enjoy any of it, because the legal trouble started young and never really let up. In 2016, he was arrested in Austin on warrants tied to a drive-by shooting back home, eventually pleading to aggravated assault and serving about 9 months. In 2018, an arrest in Florida tied to an altercation with a former girlfriend got knocked down to simple battery. Then in 2019, during an incident in Miami where Youngboy himself was the actual target of a shooting, a bystander was killed instead. That's the world he was living in while the whole country ran his songs up. But no conflict defined his story like the one that grew out of Atlanta in 2020. Youngboy and Chicago's Lil Durk had actually recorded together early on before things turned. The tension traced back to King Von, a close affiliate of Durk's who clashed with Youngboy online, and to Quando Rondo, an artist on Youngboy's own label. On November 6, 2020, outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta, King Von and his entourage confronted Quando Rondo. Shots were fired. Von was killed at 26. Youngboy was on house arrest at the time, not directly involved. But his camp inherited the grief and rage anyway. The diss tracks followed. So did real violence, canceled tour dates, and in 2022, the killing of Quando Rondo's cousin in an incident tied to retaliation. That same chain eventually reached Durk himself, who was federally charged in 2024 in a murder-for-hire conspiracy connected to that 2022 attack. Through all of it, Youngboy talked like nothing could touch him. But the paperwork told a different story. When he was finally released to strict house arrest in Utah, running from 2021 to 2024, ankle monitor, limited visitors, the isolation started eating at him. Court filings from his own legal team described anxiety, depression, weight loss, sleep problems, and a deep hopelessness about his career. He tried court-ordered therapy and stopped, saying he couldn't open up to someone who hadn't lived what he'd lived. #1 albums, millions in the bank, millions of fans screaming his name, and a man losing weight alone in a locked house, unable to sleep, unable to trust anyone enough to talk to them. Then came federal prison. In September 2020, he was arrested in Baton Rouge alongside over 15 others at a video shoot, leading to federal firearms charges. In the middle of that, he dropped Sincerely Kentrell. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 while he was locked up, something almost no artist in history has pulled off. A separate federal gun case in LA ended in a not guilty verdict. It looked like he might slide free. He didn't. In April 2024, while still on house arrest, he was arrested again, this time connected to a prescription drug fraud ring involving impersonating a doctor to obtain controlled substances. He pleaded guilty to multiple felonies there, and on the federal gun case, pleaded guilty to a sentence of about 23 months plus 5 years of probation. He served time, moved to a halfway house, and was released on probation in spring 2025. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. After a short stretch on probation, Youngboy reportedly received a full presidential pardon from Donald Trump, wiping the federal charges and ending his probation. The kid from the group Home, the teenager who wrote his first real bars in juvenile detention, cleared by the President of the United States. He launched his first headlining tour in years, reportedly tracking towards $70 million in projected grosses. On paper, that's the ending. Freedom, a pardon, a sold-out tour. So why doesn't he sound like a man who won? In interviews, he's talked about being handed millions starting at 16 and waking up one day feeling like the industry got him. He's talked about the weight of knowing how many people hear his music and then go hurt somebody. That's not a man enjoying his success. That's a man doing the math on his own influence and coming up terrified. He said it plainly. "My life is literally perfect. I'm just not happy." When he talks about the future, he doesn't sound confident. He sounds unsure of the person he's becoming. And when asked what he actually wants, it's not another car or another plaque. It's something almost painfully simple. "I do want to feel positive about myself, though, one day." A man with everything the world tells you to chase, quietly admitting the one thing he's never won is the right to like himself. He's even said flat out, "I'm terrified of people. I'm very scared of people." Terrified of the very crowds that fund his freedom. And when you hand him the word famous, he pushes it away. "I'm not famous. I don't think about it. I just have a lot of people that know me." That's where the real tragedy shows itself. And it's not the ending most people expected. Every literal cage that held him eventually opened. The group Home, juvie, the Utah house arrest, federal prison. Even the pardon opened the biggest one of all. But the man who walked out still isn't free. Because the last cage is the one nobody can pardon, the one built inside him as a kid, out of grief and fear, that he's been carrying his entire life. Commentator Charleston White, who's famously hard to move, once admitted a Youngboy lyric left him speechless. calling him the voice of a generation of hurt kids. He beat the charges. He beat the odds. He even beat the federal government. But the little boy with the halo screwed into his skull is still in there, still curious about who he's becoming, still hoping one day to just feel okay walking this earth. Maybe that's the most tragic outcome of all. Not losing everything, but winning everything, and still not being sure you're allowed to keep it. If this story moved you, tell me one thing in the comments. Do you think Kentrell Gaulden ever really finds his peace?